My best friend, Elizabeth Warren,
Yes.
has another plan.
Yes.
She loves her plans. And now she has a Blue New Deal that she's
Yes.
been talking about, fam. And for her Blue New Deal, Elizabeth Warren has said that we need a Green New Deal to fight climate crisis, but we need a Blue New Deal to protect and restore our oceans as they are past our climate solution. So they are a part of our climate solution. And so we can rebuild our blue economy. So this is her plan. She has a long plan. And she went on to explain in all these tweets her plan. But of course, as someone pointed out here, and as I'm going to point out now, Elizabeth Warren was actually working into she actually worked against the environment because she got paid a lot of money to help a company avoid clearing up toxic waste. And this is during her time when she was working as an attorney. And so there's these documents revealed from The Independent, and I'm just going to highlight a couple things. Environmental claims, product liability claims, and mass tort claims, for which we have currently only seen the tip of the iceberg, are multiplying against American businesses. This is what Warren said in retaliation to this case. And she wanted a different company to bear the brunt of the hit for the cleanup. And she wrote a memo that had not previously been reported. And this kind of shows a little bit of her past as a corporate consultant. And she was arguing, of course, in favor of this company. And she was compensated. So let me just read this. Ms. Warren's compensation in the 1996 case was included in a summary released by her campaign late Sunday night, showing that she had been paid about $2 million as a result of legal consultant during her time as a professor. So during her whole time, she was paid $2 million. But in this case in particular, she was paid $21,000. And it says here in the 1996 case in which she represented the real estate company called CMC Heartland, fighting in court to avoid having to pay the cleanup polluted old rail yard along Puget Sound in Washington state. And this stands out because her memo offers a roadmap to how she made her arguments. And like I said, she was paid $21,000. Mm-hmm. They were trying to avoid a new state law that basically put them in the hook for $4 million to clean up costs, etc. Now, Puget Sound, for people who are outside of the West, is like one of the most beautiful places in Washington. It's just green and gorgeous. And of course, it was a law that had been enacted there, and she was arguing on behalf of the company. And
she was paid by that company $21,000, right?
Yes.
Well, isn't there an argument for that, fam, to say that, okay, she was working for a company then. She had to do that then. It's different this time around. They say that about Kamala. Her job was to put people behind bars. Her job was to lock people up. Right. This time, they're working for the people, and that actually makes them a better candidate because they understand the other side of the coin. How can I say that as or anybody who's like maybe a Tulsa supporter who says she understands the military-industrial complex. She was a soldier. Now she's going to be working for us. It's different. Wouldn't Warren supporters kind of say the same thing? And what would you say to that, to a Warren supporter who says, wait a second, that's when she was obligated to do that because she was working for that law firm. Now she's not. She's seen the dirtiness, and now she's on our side.
But there's a difference between working for a law firm for money and then thinking you're going to go serve your country and putting your life on the line. Warren's life wasn't on the line for this. In fact, she was making a lot of money, and she didn't release this until she was forced to release it. And she also didn't release her tax documents either. And, the Democrats love talking about Trump's taxes, which is something that, of course, he should have released. But the fact is that Warren chose this profession and even as a professor, she got paid a ridiculous amount of money. And this is one of many cases where she was defending the companies instead of the people. She could have chosen to be a defender of the people, like a Chesa Boudin, a public defender. She could have chosen to be
Rachel
like Bernie
Rossi.
Sanders. Yes, exactly. Somebody who was actually on, in the streets, on the picket lines, etc. Now that she's running for office is when now she says she's on the side of the people. So if we're going to, talk about integrity, again, Warren has waffled, as, Pat the Burner likes to call her,
Waffling Warren?
What Elizabeth Waffle, he calls her now. Because, she's not consistent. That's the thing. People really trust Bernie's consistency. And what she did here was she also sent this memo to the U.S. Justice Department to elevate the matter to the Supreme Court. And the activists of that time, the environmental activists, were saying this was just a tactic and it hurt public health because the toxic nature of this was that it was affecting people's health. And of course, when you put something through the court system, you pretty much freeze it and you delay it and it's there and the time just stops and it becomes a long process.
There's a lot of holding and waiting.
Exactly. So she said this activist named Lois Gibbs said every time somebody takes a breath of air or touches soil, they're getting poisoned while they're fighting in court. So that's an important point to make. Elizabeth Warren was not friendly with the environmental groups back then.
So people like the Tom Steyers, the people like the Elizabeth Warren who had this past, it's really hard for them to come out there and make a really sound impression and get people to believe that they're fighting for the little man. I really shunned Tom Steyer until I saw him. And even still, at this point, I'm going to question what he did in the past. Bernie Sanders didn't do this in the past. Bernie Sanders was an activist fighting, and he came up through the ranks. Same with AOC. And I think you even see with Tulsi, she was an activist, a water woman. She went and served.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's where they come from. It's, I think, the history of just putting that beautiful social justice warrior equity in the bank, the real stuff, like the real good stuff, like fighting for the people, putting that equity in the bank to the point where, hey man, he's been doing this for years. We believe him. We trust him. Elizabeth Warren, she's changing her tune now. A little bit too late. But
it's also the fact that it's that people can change and people can adapt and they can show progression. However, that progression should not be confused with political manipulation, because if you're running for office and that's when you change your tune, then it's like, okay, then you're telling me that's the reason you're doing it. I want to see this change when you're not running for office, when there's nothing to be gained from it.
Well, that's what they're going to say. They're going to say that Elizabeth Warren, before she got her position in Massachusetts as a senator, she was fighting against the banks. She had saw what was going on. She changed her tune. So I know that's that one little sliver of area where they're talking about. But when she came into power, she'd even follow up with what she talked she would do in the past as far as punishing the banks and making sure these people pay. The restrictions that she brought about from them were minimal, and they didn't make any change whatsoever.
Right. From Occupy activists of the time in 2012 when this was going on, they said that it was largely just very surface level things she did. Nothing really helped the people with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and that's her go-to.
Yeah.
But like that hardcore activists who were literally like sitting in empty houses, like fighting the streets, they aren't really fond of her.
No.
And so I'm honestly, I also question that to the extent that it actually did help people. It really didn't help them very much. So.